Everybody, thank you for being here. It's now 3:30. I want to welcome everybody to the June 16th, 2022 meeting of the Temple City Council to conduct a workshop. Item number one is public comments. I see that no one has signed up for that, so we'll just move straight on to number two, which is to discuss as may be needed any regular meeting agenda items for the meeting posted for tonight. Council, is there anything that you want to discuss specifically? Okay, very good. It was brought to my attention, item number 11 on the regular agenda. I've spoken with Mr. Chandler earlier, and I think maybe there's a little bit further discussion or maybe explanation is needed. So we should go ahead and do that for us.
Absolutely. And Chief Randalls is here too. And
There he is. We've been waiting.
he can back me up. So it's a plat exception for fire protection. It's on the edge of our ETJ. And so Marty brought it to our attention after P&Z, and I appreciate him pointing it out because we did not communicate it particularly effectively as P&Z, basically to say that the developer had agreed and really offered to provide sprinkler systems at each of the future homes. It's not something we can enforce by state law. And so we're going to communicate that, I think, more effectively to you all in the presentation, working with fire and legal, who they're very aware of. I think it's just some of how we presented it.
Okay.
At P&Z, and to make it very clear that this is not something we can enforce, but Bell County can. And so we're working with their fire marshal to provide a little more flexibility. So it's either sprinklers or water storage tanks at each home or some other equivalent to address fire protection that ultimately would be Bell County fire marshal working with him to provide that fire protection that all homeowners want, that ultimately puts in our ETJ and not our system that we just can't enforce.
Okay, so we can't enforce it, but it'll be the city of Temple that's called out more than likely to put that fire out if there were one. Is that correct?
Chief,
Possibly.
So we would probably be on the mutual aid. We would not be a primary first responder to that area because it's not in the city, but we would likely end up there because of the department that does cover it. So,
okay.
Yeah. And just, if I could just expand a little bit on what Brian said, we did offer the extension of a water line, a water line that would suffice the fire protection requirements, or the tank. The developer thought that the initial costs and plus the ongoing maintenance would be too much on that. And so he sought a second or a third option, and that's where the sprinkler systems came in. Much cheaper to install, much cheaper to maintain. It'd be up to that individual homeowner to maintain them. So that's why that offer was, that's why he chose that. So
the developer offered up the solution of sprinklers, or was at least willing to put in sprinklers.
Correct. He asked if there was any other solutions other than the ones that we had offered with the tank or the water line. And so we did say, hey, this would be another option. And so that it happens to be the one he selected.
And that's a 4-inch line there?
I think it's a 6, if I recall correctly.
6.
But it's a relatively low pressure one.
Is the pressure high enough to maintain the sprinkler system, the internal sprinkler system?
So yes, should be. They're relatively low flow, low pressure heads because of residential heads. So you're talking about 6 to 7 gallons of water a minute from a head. And that's very easily maintained by most residential services.
Okay.
I think it'll have to be a 1-inch service going into there. So.
Okay. So does it cause a complication if the city of Temple approves this and then for some reason Bell County, maybe they're not able to come to an agreement with Bell County? What happens then?
Well, so this still does have to go to the Commissioner's Court.
Okay.
And so at this point, of course, we're finalizing the MOU process, which, would really simplify that in the future, but it's still the old system of, in the ETJ, council or P&Z or council approves it here, and then the county commissioners court has to as well.
Okay. So assuming it's approved, it moves on to the county. And at that point, it never comes back to us. We just take care of it. We approve it. Whatever happens at the county happens at the county. Essentially. Is that correct?
That'd be correct. The fire marshal, I have talked with him. He is going to verify the installation and he's agreed to report back to us and just let us know that it did happen. But I mean, as far as enforcement action, there would be none.
Okay. Council, that makes sense? Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Council, anything else on the agenda that you'd like to cover? All right, then let's move on to item number 2, which is to receive a presentation regarding the Beyond the Bend Master Plan. Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
It's just a cover.
And then we'll do. Oh, you can't, never mind. No, you gotta cover it. And maybe not use it. I'm sorry.
Either way, I believe it.
No, zero.
Thank you, everyone. I know that we presented this to you previously. We had a couple just very minor changes. I do want to say that there are 2 main property owners that own property within the Beyond the Bend neighborhood. Me and Brian and his staff, as well as Josh and Cubby. We have all been coordinating with the 2 property owners, and we've developed the master plan as well as when we move forward into the zoning change. And so today, Josh Donaldson with Cubby Landscape Architects is going to kind of just briefly show y'all some minor updates we've made to the plan and take some time to go over some of the land uses. Let me make sure it's on. Oh, maybe it doesn't work. Okay, Kelly's gonna do it for you. Sorry, Josh.
Keep scrolling.
Too busy. Don't look at the screen.
Good presentation.
All right, that's probably a good idea.
So we were able to meet with the second property owner on the north half of the property, and we gave her a presentation of this plan. Really good feedback from her. And as part of that feedback, she kind of wanted a little additional clarity of what exactly is meant by the retail office flex, the neighborhood center, and then the supporting commercial. And as part of that, and we'll talk a little bit this more on the next document, but it was really just trying to expand some of the extra uses, still focusing on a walkable, complete neighborhood process, just making sure things like if there was the opportunity for mini storage in here, what type would that be? Looking at interior only access, something that definitely could have a street frontage. Looking at how would you kind of maybe expand the retail office flex if a development came in and wanted to a little more acreage to make it possible. And we talked about how it would accommodate that and how sometimes part of that's a master plan where even though we have a master plan of this, they have their site plan where it could kind of show how buildings work within these different districts. So we've kind of updated a little bit of that narrative in this document. Yeah. And then also the second one was looking at this land use breakdown, just trying to make sure all these units work. We were informed that the property owner who has a lot of this under the commercial side would be willing in the future to allow, once the deed restrictions expire, some more mixed use residential if you know the development were to come along and that was proposed. So we want to make sure we included that as part of some of our development targets. And then also there was some concern about the scope of our open space, and we just wanted to make sure that there is maybe a little more flexibility with some of our natural areas, protecting a vast majority of them. But if the right type of development, say something like an office complex comes along and wants to integrate more into that open space, as long as we're protecting the original intent and character, we think we can accommodate that. And that was one of the requests of that property owner on the north. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the other document, which is in progress, but it's an extension of this master plan. What it really is the mechanism in which we kind of protect and enable the master plan to take place. So it's a PD. As part of that, you know, we're starting with 2 base zones, a general retail for the kind of the north and western portion of the property, and then the MF3 for the south. But as part of that, we broke down our different uses, like we had in our master plan, into their own distinct districts. And we set up how we can create that flexibility within the plan by having general targets of units and square footages of commercial and office. So if there needs to be flex or slight changes to the boundaries we put forward, we've provided a process where we can accommodate that as the development proposals come in, both in terms of some administrative approvals, if they're really small, if there are changes in the 10% range, to if they exceed that, then there would be a process for them to basically go before the Planning and Zoning Commission, get a review, make their case that they're still meeting the goals of this plan. It's just in a slightly different layout. We've provided that direction in here on subdivision, making sure we hit those block lengths. We're looking forward to really encourage that walkable environment. We've identified our street network, and we've taken it from something that was a little more conceptual towards master plan, and then we've applied a little bit more of a kind of a code approach. So when they're going through the subdivision and the planning process, that this provides a little bit more direction for them to put their submittals in. Open space, we define this a little bit more, so it kind of works as a handbook or for the development, so they can understand which types of public or park spaces they're trying to implement. So it has some characteristics and some design intent. So when they put forward their site plans, as long as they're hitting a lot of this direction, they're going to be able to quickly move through that process. And again, we've provided diagrams throughout to kind of help guide them towards an understanding. It's a little bit different than a lot of other traditional plans where they don't have that graphic element. The graphic here is supposed to kind of allow for a more educational process when they're doing their original layout, and it gets them closer to their minds quicker. We've come up with a preliminary list of uses. Right now, we're working with the property owners and trying to refine those to make sure we're getting support for both of these, and having kind of making sure that their intent for their property and the intent for this plan area match up a little bit better. And so right now that is in progress, and we're receiving or waiting on some feedback from them. And then our kind of the heart and the crux of this, the reason why we did the PD is because the development is intended to take a different shape, and we wanted to provide some standards with graphics that, again, were more of a educational thing as well as a standard to meet. And that's what you're seeing here, is you're seeing these different districts, and it kind of identifies how to look at the property and how to can meet the intent of the master plan with direction and recommendations for site organization as well as setbacks, building heights, et cetera. We did a diagram for each district, and it kind of shows how you can meet and what the intent of that built form is. Again, you can see the neighborhood center where you start to see the character around it, be a little bit more walkable, more engaging with short setbacks. Our supporting commercial, again, how do we incorporate both the, if you want to go to the street frontage, you can, but we want to make sure we get walkable elements in there. But if you are going to do in front parking, what eventually that kind of starts to look like. And then how do you think of larger sites with things like flag lots that can, you know, the bigger commercial can go in the back and they can still maintain their access to the right of way. And then our retail office flex, we're waiting to hear again from one of the property owners on this, but ultimately the goal here is how do you kind of treat stuff, two kind of distinct uses, one with an office that can be up, 2+ acres and be more of a campus feel. And then also that retail thing. So here we're targeting potentially can be similar uses, but depending on the site itself, the way the site development standards are applied are slightly different. One has a little bit more flexibility. The bigger you get, kind of the more of a site plan process is going to help define the intent. And then we talked about compatibility standards as part of the presentation. This is what they start to look like in providing that graphic and description so that they can easily understand how to comply with these additional standards. And then going into our parking, kind of having a unified parking standard for this area. It's slightly less than what the city typical is, but that's intentional. We expect this place to be a little bit more walkable, potentially have more on-street parking. So it is a little more accommodating. We don't necessarily have to have as much off-street parking. This is kind of why we need that different standard. Then just kind of more direction on how do we calculate things like shared parking between different uses, kind of having a lot of that direction up front. So when we get multiple sites and cross-access easement between different developments, we can kind of put a direction where they can come quickly start to say, hey, if you have that cross-access easement and you're both talking to each other, you can get some shared parking real quick through the site plan submittal process. And it just provides that extra level of direction. Our landscape standards, we want to make sure we had some uniformity across the development with species and application of where you're putting your planting in and how to make sure that it's going to be the right size, the right height of planting. And so we provide a little extra direction in this, as well as the graphics to start to highlight how you can quickly, come up with your landscape plan and communicate, your compliance really quick. And then lastly, or not necessarily lastly, we have some more stuff, our sign standards, this is a little tighter than some other stuff. We want to communicate the intent to kind of have that range for and almost establish a family across the development so you can get some consistency and there's not just complete different approaches to signage across beyond the band. So we provide that direction here. And then just kind of the last couple of things we look at are where do you put your mechanical, your utilities, how do you screen those, things along those lines, fencing, where you would apply it, what is appropriate in what location. A lot of this stuff kind of makes sure we're protecting that front yard so we can still have the buildings and the architecture engage the street, but we still know that there's opportunities or desires to have some privacy in your rear yard and want to make sure we have that in the code as well. And so that's kind of where we're at. We're still in progress. We anticipate that there's a little back and forth that's occurring within this. And so we'll update as needed, but for the most part, we haven't seen that much pushback from both property owners on this. They've been pretty happy. So I think we're getting where we need to be quickly. Any questions?
You mentioned some deed restrictions that are going to impact the development until they expire.
Yes,
How long is that?
I believe it's 2028. And that was just no residential in boundary, basically this front half of the property right here, which we weren't planning on anyways, so.
So don't begin that.
No big impact, but if somebody, 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road wanted to come in and put some sort of nice mixed use stuff right next to our neighborhood center, we're gonna allow that to happen.
Okay, very good. Council, any questions? Thoughts, comments about that? Very good.
I believe we plan to have this on the council agenda at the July 7th meeting for formal adoption. You taken it before the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Parks Board so far, and they both recommended it.
Okay. Very good. All right, item 3 on the agenda is to receive a presentation regarding the Jackson Park neighborhood study.
Okay. So, this is our 9th neighborhood plan. We're moving very quickly. Sean is going to hand out some feedbacks and tell us an actual hard copy of the plan. Just let us know. But, one of my favorite parts.
Let's see.
It's easier to carry.
A handshake.
And a handshake, easier to carry.
Come for Ann.
All right, when did y'all have a chance? So, as y'all know, with all of our different plans, our 9th one of the most fun parts about it is writing a song for the neighborhood. So we wrote a song for this neighborhood. So I'm just gonna kick it off and look at this and that. And go through.
We started neighborhood planning, hoping folks would help us out. We're talking about that park called Jackson. Look at what this plan's about. Come to the park of Jackson and take a look around. Yeah, come to the park called Jackson, one of the best in town. Well, come on to that park called Jackson. Walk along Knob Creek for your help. Go play in the park and help us with the plan. Get some ideas for yourself. See the park of Jackson and drive the thoroughfares. Yeah, friends, we got a plan for Jackson because the city cares. When I go walking along 4th Street, I think we need a nice trail. All of us should get together so we can tell you in more detail. Come on down to Jackson, drive down Houston and French, 'cause we've got a plan for Jackson to benefit the residents. They'll tell you around that park called Jackson, neighborhood identity is key. Yes, signs will be around letting Jackson Park be found. We hope you like what you see. Go visit round Jackson and check out our new plan. And we'll be waiting for feedback for as long as we can. Yeah, we started neighborhood planning, hoping folks would help us.
Enough of the song.
This is numero uno, the best you've done.
Yes,
It is.
well, I can't take credit for picking the song. Our lovely city manager had the idea for it, and so I just write the lyrics.
Very good.
Nathan Ivacek. He was our musician for our Jackson Park engagement.
Cover artist, he does really well, he does a lot of Johnny Cash songs. All kinds of different songs, actually, he did really well. It was a lot of fun. Oh, okay, here we go. That's the clicking. As Shawnee's gonna mention, we start out, all of our planning processes, with a lot of engagement. We wanna learn about the neighborhood. So we conducted surveys. We also, oh, I'm sorry. What we do too is we hold two engagement events. We were really lucky with this one. When we started planning it, it's the time of National Night Out. So we held a National Night Out night at Jackson Park. We had a short form survey and received a lot of feedback there. And then we did our large community event at Jackson Park at a later date and had our long form survey there. So we also hold a series of focus groups and we identify key stakeholders within the neighborhood, with residents, business owners, you name it, that are active within the neighborhood and meet with them as the external planning team and review the plan as we go through. We do our MPD news edition, and that's how we kind of put the plan out and that's how we get feedback. The song was in there, so that's why you hear in the songs, please give us feedback. It's a part of it. And then we take this to multiple boards. Kelly Atkinson assisted in Historic Preservation Board, Nancy Glover presented to the Neighborhood Revitalization Board, and Kelly also maybe presents at the Planning and Zoning Commission Board. So lots of boards have seen this before you all. So this is the Jackson Park area, as you can see. So generally it's really surrounded by about 5 different neighborhoods, many of which that we've already planned or are currently planning, like Garden District. The major entry points that we kind of see coming into this neighborhood are Nugent, First, and 8th. So as you can see there, it's a kind of a closer up. One thing that is really neat about this neighborhood is that the neighborhood is Jackson Park, but you have Jackson Park, the actual park, situated within it, and it's in like almost perfect form. This park is situated generally in the center of the neighborhood, so it's walkable from almost any residence. So we did go through and Transform Temple, their team, they go through and they rate all the parcels in the neighborhood so we can see the conditions. You can see a majority of the structures in this neighborhood are really well maintained, mostly an A and B rating. We only really have one that's a lower rating than C. There are several sidewalks within this subdivision, which is really nice, but most of them, unfortunately, are either in poor or very poor condition. There's very few that are in good condition. So that's been a huge, as we see, there's a lot of people walking to Jackson Park, to schools, and so you'll see that in a lot of our recommendations. But as far as trail connectivity, improvements, sidewalks, and other things. Where we have, I kind of talked briefly, we do identify primary neighborhood entry points. We really see that as being Nugent Avenue from 3rd Street, as well as First Street, both on the northern and southern boundary. Main Street, because it can get all the way from downtown on Main Street into Jackson Park, so that's used quite a bit, as well as 8th Street. So First Street is a really highly trafficked area. It's especially for pedestrians. We heard from a lot of the residents, and then we saw actually as well that you have a lot of school-age children in particular walking to school along First Street. So as well as providing access to Miller Park, it's just like a common destination there. So we really see it as an opportunity for us to enhance the streetscape with sidewalk and street trees. So then we can make sure that people can travel safely on the corridor when they're walking. The Knob Creek cut through, we are proposing an off-street trail here that would provide access from 3rd Street along Knob Creek corridor in Jackson Park. This would also connect the bicycle facilities along First Street to this proposed path. Some benefits to this as well is that you would have a little bit of a passive surveillance along the corridor going through, to provide a little bit more eyes on it and also having some more linkages within Jackson Park. A Street is a north-south corridor within Jackson Park. Basically at French Street, this street reduces from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And so it really, prohibits access for large commercial trucks. So because of the activity, some improvements that we see happening here is there's an opportunity for an entry, monument signage, as well as some intersection enhancements like bulb outs and things like that to make sure that it's safe and walkable. So this is where we identify our different types of corridors. We kind of identify our fair plan. We get a little bit closer in and we can see, where we identify whether it's a bicycle route, a connector, a collector, or a roadway. And then we also identify where intersection is. So just briefly going over 3rd Street is on the western edge. We have seen 3rd Street in a lot of our neighborhood plans. We had recommendations and, almost every one that we've done so far, because 3rd Street is that border there. So I'm really looking at being consistent with our other recommendations by providing a sidewalk on both sides with the planning strip and those continuous. Nugent Avenue, major entry point into this neighborhood. It's a lighted intersection at 3rd Street. So we really wanted to make sure that we see also a lot of school-age children and people walking. A lot of people walk to the convenience store that's on it's the southeast corner. You see them walking there, or to other neighborhood services that are along 3rd Street, but also school-age children walking to and from school. So we want to make sure that this roadway is in need of repair, so some improvements to be done there, including a curb and gutter system, planting strip on both sides, and then adding in sidewalks for pedestrian safety. 4th Street, we see that as a pedestrian connector within this neighborhood, which ultimately that goes to Hillcrest Cemetery. So what we see here is really making some improvements by adding the sidewalks on either side, so, separated by the median, and really meandering the sidewalks. You have a lot of existing trees out there, so you want to meander the sidewalks to reduce having to take out any of those existing trees. 1st Street, we've identified this as our bicycle route. We have a bicycle route in a lot of our plans. This bicycle route would connect to other bicycle routes and other plans that we've done. So basically, as I said before with this, you just make sure that bicyclists are a priority on these roads and identify continuous routes. 1st Street was kind of natural because it's a full extension there straight. Here is where we identify our different focus areas within the plan. So you have your active 3rd Street area, which is essentially sales and supplies area. So really wanting to make sure that we maintain the employment presence in this area. There is a portion of the historic district that goes into Jackson Park. So that is that blue area that you see down there. It's a very small section. There are several neighborhood services that are along the corridor, basically from Irvin to French Avenue. And then, of course, we have this huge park and memorial zone with Hillcrest Cemetery being within the neighborhood. We did look, though, going through the neighborhood, even though it's not identified as a historic district, and I'll talk about this a little bit later on as well, is that a lot of these homes are older and have a lot of historic heritage. So we'll have some recommendations there. 4th Street Trail. That's what I was talking about. This is a great opportunity for us to provide a trail that leads to the cemetery. So some opportunities is to provide a nice wide trail that could also be used for particular access, making sure that it has trees on either side. It'd be nice to have a gated trail entry to kind of let you know that you're entering the trail, and then provide lighting for safety purposes. And you can see on the bottom right there how we can proceed that. We heard from a lot of residents in our survey responses that a dog park is desired in this area, and the city does own an undeveloped portion of the property right there along Nugent. And so this is a good opportunity for us to potentially have a dog park in this area. So we're proposing to make sure it's a little safe for for the pedestrians that are getting there. So kind of slowing down traffic by adding in the roundabout, providing some parking, so people can get from other neighborhoods over to the dog park that can't walk. Trail connectivity to leading to the dog park, as well as providing landscaping in the dog park area, as well as street trees. So as I mentioned, one thing I know that Kelly and I particularly noticed is that there are several homes, and these are actually homes that Kelly took photos of within the Jackson Park neighborhood. And you can see that there are several different types of different architectural homes that are located in here that have historic significance. So one thing that we'd really like to do is, even though they're not located in the historic district right now, we think there's a lot of value to us in the future looking at doing a survey of this area and really getting a lot more detail about the historic homes and potentially having a future historic district here. Third and Nugent, very important intersection, as I talked about earlier, for us to look at. So, some really key considerations that we've looked at for this area. There's an existing convenience store there. And, as we look at 3rd Street, we see most of this convenience store has just open driveways everywhere. So really, when we want to provide sidewalks, we want to make sure that it's safe and pedestrians can actually get down to their destination. So really reducing those driveways is important, as well as providing those street trees between 3rd Street and the sidewalk for safety purposes. So then we can create that continuous sidewalk. And also enhancing the intersection. A lot of people walking to and from, you can also go all the way down Nugent to get to Optimus Park and other areas in the historic district. So providing nice, safe crossings at intersections. We did look at what we could do. So, we often dream, right? And so we looked at the corner, and there's currently a convenience store in this corner. And so we think that it works well. That type of use works very well. A lot of people utilize that. But some just basic improvements can really improve the aesthetics. And you can see here by really changing the building character, and there's some reuse opportunities. There's some retail stores that are connected to it. So there's some potential there to really revitalize this corner with also keeping the convenience store use. Architectural character, looked at several different types of housing types. The cottage courtyard, they're typically more smaller housing units. And they give they're a little bit smaller, so that they usually have like a green space around them as they're smaller lots. Duplexes can be utilized here. You can also make them appear to look like a single family, and so they really fit into the area well. Stacked duplexes is another opportunity. You can kind of allow for an owner to live there and a renter as well. So just encourages a different approach to duplex housing, as well as fourplex opportunities, which are, of course, more larger scale. Jackson Park, working with Kevin Beavers and his team, they had identified some improvements, and through our neighborhood planning process, we had the opportunity to hear from a lot of residents and what they wanted to see within that neighborhood. So, a lot of folks, utilize the neighborhood. One thing that we noticed within the neighborhood survey is that there are a lot of children under the age of 5 within this neighborhood, and the playground equipment that currently is there is probably geared more toward an older child of 10 and older. So we're recommending the addition of a tot lot, which is a playground that younger children can play on. We've also have some recommendations for increasing the number of parking spaces. You can do this through parallel parking that you can see there along Jackson Avenue. And then also providing trail connectivity that you can eliminate the 4th Street drive into there and create that trail connectivity from 4th Street into the Jackson Park as well. We also, it's not typical that you would see restrooms in a neighborhood park, because the idea is that you can walk to and from your home there, but they're there. So Kevin and his team and both the planning team, we do recommend that those existing restrooms still do need some refurbishment. And this is an example of that 4th Street Park entrance that I was telling you about, where we would close that roadway and we would create that safe pedestrian access through there. Another part of this is that you can have some stormwater management. So a portion could be used to convey stormwater into the park. And so hopefully maybe reduce flooding in surrounding areas. From French to Houston, we really saw this area as a prime location for neighborhood services. Right now, it's highly auto-oriented. You see a lot of parking lots within this area. So what we could do is, what we looked at is some building reuse, including so developing some multifamily housing in this area, you know, providing some really nice outdoor seating with flex space that people can enjoy. 3rd Street, these are 2 existing buildings. I believe the one in the far is a laundromat. And so, and I think the other one is vacant. So we wanted to show what would be if this area was revitalized. And so still say a laundromat with just some basic improvements that you can see here. So currently, you know, you have that space in between the 2 buildings, but just some, you know, really providing just some general, like very, not much, you know, building improvements to this area, making sure that the buildings do face 3rd Street, but providing continuous sidewalks, some landscaping, and changing some curb cuts, and can really transform this area. The one thing too in the Jackson Park neighborhood is that there are several alleys within this neighborhood. A lot of them not improved. They're grassy, and so but some people do drive down them. And you do have, although like trash pickup may be not done within the alley, there does appear to be some utilities in there. So like we did with the historic plan, we've identified all the areas that do have alleys, and provided some recommendations on how this can be. And we did our typical neighborhood identity. We want each neighborhood to have an identity associated with it. So we identified some what I think really fits the neighborhood. You have your entry monument signage examples here, some logos. What we could see as potential options for street sign toppers that would go on top of the streets. Our lighting zones. This is where we've identified all of our different lighting zones. So as you can see here, very similar to what we did in our other neighborhood plans. And then lastly, with all this, we come up with several different projects that we would like to do within the neighborhood based on all the feedback, and we put it all together in one place. With that being said, I would be happy to answer any questions here.
Council, any questions? That's a neat little neighborhood. That's over in District 1. And the folks that are there take lots of pride. And the park is a gathering place. They use that park, you know, for neighborhood gatherings, National Night Out. I think they even they may do like a neighborhood cookout a couple times a year. So yeah, they built a little community around that park, which is fun to watch. So, anything else?
Good plans.
All right. Thank y'all very much. What did we pay for that song? Sorry, next question. All right. Item 4 is to receive departmental updates from Human Resources, Library, and Public Works. Mr. Raymore.
Hi, how's everyone? Staying cool, I hope it's hot outside. So this is the second quarter update for Human Resources. So first of all, where have we been in the past quarter? We built some compensation cycles and tested them in Dayforce, which is important whenever you're wanting to make any changes to compensation to be able to do them at a mass load rather than going individually. So it's a lot less work when you can do it in a cycle. We completed the general government market study. We conducted departmental meetings after that. We've conducted 2 police entrance exams and 1 fire entrance exam. Back in the months of January and February, we had a lot of COVID requests from our employees. There were 225 that came through. Luckily, in March and April combined, we went down to 5. And then in the last couple of months, we've had less than 3. So we're so happy to say that those numbers are significantly down for our organization. We began reviewing and updating our civil service local rules, and we are going through that process with a vendor that's assisting us. And then we continued working on our employer and recruitment branding strategy with a consultant. What are we working on this quarter? We were finalizing calculations for our market study recommendations. We were reviewing new positions that were requested in the budget process and assigning pay grades to those. We are right now at the end process of reviewing RFPs for medical. We did not end up going out for RFP for vision, but medical and pharmacy we did. So we're evaluating that right now. And then we'll be updating our employee policy manual again. That's an annual process that we do. We'll update the city manager delegation document, which that's kind of tied to the policy manual. And then we'll finalize that employer branding and recruitment strategy in this quarter. So an update on our how our health plan and pharmacy plan, how they have been performing. The first quarter of the year, which is October through December, is what I'll talk about first. This is our enrollment strategy of active employees. So as you can see, we have about 66 in our PPO plan. That's the plan that we have that is a Scott and White plan, but has an extended network that is the Cigna network. Our HMO, which is just the Scott and White network, has 337. And then our high deductible health plan has 238 employees enrolled in that plan. Our medical and RX claims in the first quarter, if you looked at the quarter this year, this October to December versus last year, October to December, they were down about 32%, which is a good thing. But the first quarter is always a little off since claims don't always hit right at the beginning of the plan year. Our plan year does start in October. So when I see that number, it's a good number, but I don't put a lot into it because as you go through the year, your claims go up over the next quarters. When we looked at the 2021 calendar year, so that was January to December of 21 versus January to December of 20, we had a 17% reduction in our high cost claims. Those are claims over 100,000. Unfortunately, in quarter two, which was January to March, we do have some high claims. So the next time that I come back for my quarterly update for you guys, I'll give you an update on that, but I know we've had some high claims come through. Being fully insured, that does impact our renewal with our vendor, and also if we're going out for RFP, the claims is like one of the main things they look at to quote you for your health insurance costs. Our top paid provider, not surprisingly, since, you know, as you see, a majority of our employees are in the HMO, is Scott and White. So Scott and White is the top paid provider at about $1.5 million in claims. So this is talking about visits that employees where they go to, and then how much the claims cost. So that was the top provider for last year for the calendar year. Our number one reason for medications that are prescribed, the number one medication is for diabetes. So 11 out of the top 25 drugs that are prescribed to our employees are for diabetes management.
What's the annual premium paid? If you were
I don't have it on the top of my head, but I feel like it's about 4 million.
4 point something million.
It's roughly 400,000 plus a month premium.
Okay.
So our key performance indicators, this is the stuff I love, you know, all the metrics and looking at, you know, what we're doing. So our top applicants by month, so this shows you January, February, March. We had the most applications in March with 712. That's how many actual applications are being coming into our system for jobs that are posted. It looks like we're getting lots of applications, which is good. If you look at where they're finding out about our job postings, you'll see the number one location is Indeed with 778 saying that that's where they heard about the job, with the city website being number 2. The top 4 jobs that got the most job applications were the firefighter, admin assistant, a library assistant, and an evidence and property tech. So they had the most applications for the quarter. Our new hires, over on the left here, you'll see that the most new hires we had during the quarter were in parks with 30, followed by police with 20, public works with 19, and then 18 in all other areas. In the months of January to March, that's where we're doing a lot of hiring for the seasonal positions that are coming up for summer. A lot of times in March, we'll have a lot of people coming through for that. By month, though, you'll see that February was our highest month for new hires that actually started with the city, with 46 starting in February, followed by March at 28. In January, we had 13. For police civil service recruiting, we conducted those 2 exams. One February 5th, we had 27 people come and show up for the exam, with 17 passing. On April 30th, we had 25 that showed up and 15 that passed. We generally have about a 50% pass rate, so our pass rate is increasing, it's becoming better. Our number of people showing up, if you look back historically, it's a little lower than it has been, but we're getting more qualified candidates out of the process is what we're finding. More of them are able to move through. For fire, for that March exam, with fire for entry, we usually only do 1 test a year for that one, but we had 52 people show up and 39 pass. So again, there we're seeing that we had more than a 50% pass rate. So as far as our new hires go and everything that they're doing when they're starting, the ones who enrolled in benefits on time within the time frame that they had is shown on the left. We have about an 88% in January, and the lowest was in March at 83, February at 84. So we would like to, of course, see that at 100%. That's eligible employees that have enrolled in benefits. Sometimes the reason they don't enroll, they do it intentionally because they don't want our benefits. They have them outside of the city, but we still need them to go in and complete the process because there's some benefits that are given to employees that they don't pay for, like basic life, and we need to know who their beneficiary is and things like that. We've implemented a process internally to reach out to new hires by phone, by email, contacting them, trying to get through to their supervisor if we can't get them, to remind them, to invite them over to come and take care of these things so that they don't miss out. The new hire orientation process, we had a total of 43 new hires in the quarter, and 30 of them attended orientation by the time this report was run. They have 60 days from the date of hire to attend orientation. And again, our goal is that all of them would attend, but we had about 13 missing during that quarter. And then there's task completion that takes place out in Dayforce, and those tasks are like the employees acknowledging the policy manual, completing their direct deposit form, their W-4, those processes. These are the percentages that completed those tasks timely within their window, which is 30 days from the date that we start the onboarding until they're here with us. So 57% in February. Again, this is a metric where you're trying to improve by calling those individuals, personally reaching out and trying to get them to finish these tasks. Organization management change forms. So previously we had these yellow forms and they were called PAFs. And then we converted that into the system. It's called a position and compensation change form. Those converted all those yellow papers into this process. We had 376 of those that we processed in the last quarter. And those forms are submitted for everything from a person that's going out on FMLA to someone who's having a pay change or a promotion or various things throughout the organization, but related to the employees' employment factors. So our turnover percentage, you'll see here on the left for the second quarter, it was 4.07%, so a little over 4% overall for the organization. There's some reporting we're still working on where we're trying to pull out exact metrics on departments, but how the system's set up right now, and it's splitting out the departments. It's splitting them into very minute pieces, like administrative services within the police department is like its own department in the system. And we're trying to work on some of that to get our reporting where we can just report to you from, you know, the higher level of the departments, like which ones have the highest turnover and then by position level. So I'm hoping to have that for you in the coming quarters. The reasons that people gave for leaving, so we had 43 who left during the quarter. 12 filled out an exit survey. Out of those 12 people, the top reason for leaving was personal reasons, followed by pay. The people who responded, I looked at all 12 of them. All 12 gave multiple reasons for leaving. Like, not one of them gave just one reason. So some were like personal and pay, or personal and work environment, or so multiple factors. We do have a new process that we've created. It's an offboarding module in Dayforce. It has not been opened up live to everyone yet. We're planning to do training on that in the month of July to train all of our managers and staff on how to use that product. And then we'll be gathering this information from pretty much everyone who's leaving the organization. So we'll have more info.
Is there a way to make it mandatory?
Well, the process will be pretty much mandatory because it's tied to where they turn in their property and they do all of their exit checklists. So this is part of that whole process. So it pretty much is, because it's part of the same flow. Well, it's not going to be like a policy that says you have to do this. It's
Part of the process.
It's part of the process. The only time you won't gather it is if someone exits, it's a sudden exit, like if they pass away or, something happens where they just can't complete the process like a normal.
Because 12 out of 43, it's not great.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Once the process is in place.
Yes, and that's why we created the process and put it into Dayforce. And it, like I said, it's tied to, there's a manager piece, and then there's the person that's leaving has a piece, and they both have to work together to make sure like they've turned in their equipment. The manager has turned off their access to computer programs. The employee's telling us where to mail their final paycheck or how to contact them. So all of that will be worked out in that process.
Very good.
Any questions?
Council?
So what happens if the new employee doesn't fill out the forms within the time limit?
Well, it depends on which form. If it's like a direct deposit form, payroll gets involved and they help us, and we call them because they have to have that to get their check direct deposited, or W-4 for their taxes. If it's like a policy manual acknowledgement, we generally will call them. So they do it, but they don't do it in the time frame they're given. Generally, we get them to do it. It just takes a little bit. Yeah, and we remind them when they come to the new hire orientation as well. So we do capture people when they come over in person, and we have computers there, and we'll sit down with them and help them walk through it.
Can't you tie some of that to the first paycheck?
Tell them they can't get paid until they.
Yeah.
I don't think that's legal.
Don't do it, never mind, bad
You pay
idea.
people for hours that they work, so you probably have a little bit of a problem with that, but. We are, like I said, we're gonna roll out some training for the managers, and there's a checklist also that we have created for them for when someone is new, so it'll help them to walk through and make sure they're helping us get that information.
Very good.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
guys so much.
I made things. Okay, there we go. Good evening or afternoon. It's still early. It feels later. So I'm going to give our report for the Temple Public Library. There we go. So this is just a glance at what we're going to go through this evening, afternoon. I'll get there. The past 90 days, the next 90 days, and then a review of our key performance indicators. So over the past 90 days, as it relates to the master plan that the library is currently going through, these are some of the steps that we have gone through. So providing information to our consultants, taking part in a SWOT analysis, taking part in stakeholder interviews and facilitating focus group meetings, and then discussing library technology with the consultants and some of the vendors that they have suggested. Facility-wise, we've rearranged some things in the building. We've moved our first floor staff workroom into a much larger space, so you can actually work in the workroom. We've moved our second floor staff workroom so that we have an actual workroom space now. And we've been able to reopen our study rooms as a result of that. The 2 study rooms that we have on the second floor. We've created what we're calling a breathing room. It's a room for parents who need to feed their child, or they need to change a diaper, or they need to just have a minute to calm down when they're in the library, because sometimes you get a little overstimulated. So that's on our first floor in our children's area. We've removed all of our COVID barriers, and we've brainstormed some ideas with the facilities team about mitigating some of our exterior issues, especially as it relates to our outside stairwell. With the Friends of the Library, we've gotten new signage for their book nook, which is their year-long book sale area in the building on the first floor. We've worked with them on securing the funds from the Friends and making sure that we can get items purchased in a timely manner. We've presented the ideas for the bookmobile that we have to them, and members of the Friends took part in our master plan focus group meetings. The Library Advisory Board, they approved our discussion of the bookmobile, the vehicle that we're looking at getting. So now, again, it goes back to the Friends to make sure they're on board with that. They've approved policies based on the master plan consultants revisions, and members of the board also took part in the focus groups and stakeholder interviews for our master plan. Staffing wise, we have had a bit of movement. We've had a lot of shifting up as people have been promoted. Our wonderful administrative assistant was stolen. Where did he go? To the airport? There we go.
Way to go, Sean.
So she's doing fabulous over there. So we have hired a new admin assistant, hired a custodian, hired an adult services supervisor, and then all of these other positions as well. And we've promoted from within, from one of our part-time circulation assistants to a part-time assistant librarian. Programs and initiative wise, we have a few new things. So Rock and Read is our infant outreach program. Every child who's born at Baylor Scott and White Labor and Delivery receives the library card along with an informational card that leads them to our Rock and Read webpage with information on books for parents, books for newborns, information about newborns. It's as close as we can get to a manual as possible. So hopefully it will be helpful to the parents. So we've already taken our first round of cards out to the hospital for them to provide those to the new families. We've started a seed library program. We have given away over 3,000 packets of seeds since starting this 2 months ago. So it's going fabulous. This is because of the Friends of the Library and their funding for this project. We started our homebound delivery program. We're getting close to at least 10 people who are signed up in the city. One thing that we just found out is Baylor Scott and White is really interested in having information from us that they can provide to patients who have just had surgery, or even their new parents who are going to be homebound for a little while. Providing information on the homebound program that they can pass out to those individuals so that they can utilize our services in that way as well. So we're working with marketing to get some handouts that they can just pass out with their outpatient information. We've implemented various new youth and adult programs. We've taken part in some Texas digital cohorts, including a digital fluency and a digital inclusion one. We've gone through an EDGE assessment, which is a technology assessment of what the library provides. We are taking part in the Sustainable Shelves program, which is a way for us to recycle items that may not be able to be sold, whether it's due to condition or age of the item. We've started a pop-up library program at various city parks within the city, so we appreciate the Parks Department letting us set up. And we've installed a Bell County Kindness Rock shelf. They reached out to us and asked if they could put up a little shelf in our building. And so we worked on getting that installed. We developed a second team for our Cutter to Call Number project. This is our large project where we are converting all of the information on just find our materials in the entire library. So we're ramping up the speed at which that is happening. We've had our summer reading kickoff party, summer reading, the program itself, and then the summer food program. And I actually just found this information out. Well, I found it out late yesterday. So we do not have the weekend meals program currently at the library. Central Texas Food Bank was unable to participate in Temple this year for whatever reason it may be. But the Rotary Club of Temple South has offered to reimburse me for purchasing the food for the summer reading program, or for the summer weekend meals program. So they are going to be paying for the weekend meals program going forward, starting tomorrow. So we will be able to provide food for Saturdays and Sundays that'll be passed out on Fridays. Budget and financials. So we've completed our fiscal year 23 budget. We've identified areas for improving in ordering, changing our ordering procedure, implementing cash controls, identifying areas for improvement in our room reservation system, and implemented those changes as well. In the next 90 days, for the master plan, this actually just happened. So never mind on the RFID technology companies, they came out 2 days ago. So that has occurred. We've met with we are going to be meeting with our consultants, tech services, IT, and IT department to discuss our building entryway. That'll be on June 25th. We're going to have community meetings, receive our survey data, receive our focus group and stakeholder interview data, do any follow-ups that are necessary, and then we will start the presentations with that information. Facility-wise, review the quotes for that exterior mitigation and see about possible installation. Friends of the Library, we are in the process of preparing the wish list that we will give to the Friends for next year. Then they will have the bookmobile purchase. The summer pop-up book sale started today, and then the Labor Day book sale. The Library Advisory Board, they are working, right now we're working with legal, and we will be working with them to rewrite our unattended child policy. And then we're going to have them assess our meeting room rental prices. Staffing, what we've asked for from City Council for the fiscal year 23 budget is the part-time library assistant for our outreach division, which is our division that takes care of the homebound services, the pop-up libraries, the infant outreach program. And then a full-time librarian for our youth services division. And then programs and initiatives. So like I said, we just got word that we are going to be doing the summer weekend food program. We're reassigning some selection and ordering duties within our adult services division, determining what items within our collection need to be digitized, especially those from local authors, genealogical materials, and City of Temple related items. Then working with a genealogical society to open our genealogy room, developing this for the future fall, winter, and spring reading programs, and then the completion of our Cutter to Call Number project. Budget and financials, we're looking to expand our credit card services to our second floor as well, so that people can pay for their print jobs when they're using the computer on our second floor. And then explore online payment options, create wish list for the Friends of the Library, and then we're working on that RFT type technology. We're looking at an RFP for implementing that. And then our KPI review, circulation-wise for the third quarter, we're at 77,250 physical circulations, and then digital circulations 2,257. And those, I believe, are not. Those are not to this date and time. Library visits, we're at 27,516, and then our program attendance is at 4,290. The program attendance, I can tell you, has already gone up by probably 1,000 since these numbers were given about a week ago, 2 weeks ago when we had our quarterly meeting. Just for one of our programs last week, we had 436 kids attend. For Lucas Miller, the singing zoologist. So these numbers are a little low compared to the actuals. Reference and our searches on our catalog. So reference is the reference questions. These are the deep dive questions that take a little bit more than it's over there as an answer. So we've had 1,124 of those. And catalog searches, we've got 25,287 so far in this quarter. And then our other services, so our computer uses, 1,835 in this quarter. Patron savings, 615,542. As you can see, we have provided more savings so far this year to the community than our operating budget is. So I feel like that's a fantastic number to share. And that is all. Questions?
Got anything for Natalie?
Very good.
How do you calculate savings?
So every time someone checks out from the library, their receipt is going to tell them how much it would have cost if they had purchased that item instead of getting it from the library for free. So it calculates the price that we have paid for the material. That number is also stored in a separate area in the back end where we can do the cumulative per day, per month, what that savings was.
Very good, thank you.
No problem.
I think those outreach programs for new mothers and then, folks that are recovering from surgery, those are interesting and, thoughtful, just good for the community. A lot of times, or with new mothers, if they don't have someone backing them up, that can be stressful. If their mother or whoever is not engaged, it's nice. That's what we're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank
I've
you.
been trying to convince Natalie to write a children's book featuring City of Temple, like ABCs or 1, 2, 3, like you've got 11 elevated storage tanks,
Oh,
12, whatever.
It's going to
that sounds like
happen.
a Count Dracula, Sesame Street. 11 stories. Very nice. Thank you. All right.
All right. I know we can play music. It's so hot outside. I had some Jimmy Buffett. I bring you margaritas, but I think that's frowned upon at council meetings. So sorry about
You can
that.
play margaritas now.
Okay, we'll compromise.
Not an executive.
All right, so first half of this is utilities. That's my area. We've upgraded 24 vehicles with emergency lighting, keep people safe out down the roads, help them be able to see at night. So that's important to us. We got that finished. The air compressors, those are for tools in the trucks. They had battery powered, electric powered ones. That and water don't mix very well, and we deal with water all the time. So we got some air compressors, help the staff be safer and more productive. The business plan and the budgeting, I appreciate finance for putting up with me and my harebrained ideas. But we got that all taken care of and done. So that was fun. Monthly meetings with managers. That's something I've started with my staff to try and get them to understand the budgets a little better, give them some training. That's gone well. Learned a lot from that, from just talking with them and made some improvements there. Regulatory compliance. There's our transportation. I didn't do that. So when Kenny hears about that, that was not my doing. A new state law for electric providers, facilities. We worked with facilities to take care of that. An audit was for energy, was conducted by the local college here at both of our sewer treatment plants to help us find some savings there. And we have some opportunities there. We finished our CCR data, gave it over to the wholesale customers as we're required to do. Then TCQ has been our close friends this last stretch. Emergency preparedness plan, that was a new requirement that came down from the state. We worked a lot on the first part of the first few months of the year. The annual IPP reports, which is industrial pretreatment, that becomes more and more critical as we have these big industries coming to our city. Tier 2 chemical reports are required by the treatment plant, and the airport's part of that too. We help them with that. Water loss report, we do annually. Water conservation report, we do annually. Then TCQ visited the water treatment plant, gave us an audit, and they visited both sewer treatment plants and gave us audits there as well. And they didn't kick us too hard, so it went rather smoothly. Sewer treatment, we did have some fun at one of our treatment plants. One of the big things is a huge cost savings was we've changed how we operate the water treatment plant. Instead of trucking some waste away, we've taken some tests and found that we can send it straight to our treatment plant. So that'll save $300,000 a year. So that was a good win for us there. We had some ammonia issues at the Temple Belt Water Treatment Plant for a couple months. We were out of compliance there. We've gotten that under control. And a lot of that is just heavy loading. We're getting ready to expand that plant. So hopefully we've learned from this challenge and we can get by until that plant is expanded. It's looking like we should be able to do that. We worked with UBO to implement a change that was made to our ordinance on industrial pretreatment sampling recovery. Before the city was absorbing those costs for the industrial users, now we pass that along to them, so we break even. So appreciate Heather over there in UBO for helping us with that. And we continue our paperwork cleanup with TCQ over at Dozier Farm to give us more flexibility with all these industrial users coming in and how we calculate things there. So that made it through. So we were happy to get that out of the way. This slide represents our EPA order for our sewer overflows. This is a spreadsheet we put together each month to track how we're doing with things. We submit an annual report to the EPA, which we also did this last stretch. The HGAC contract for manhole lining, we have a company that comes and lines manholes so that the water can't get into the system during rain events, called infiltration. So we've got that going. Knob Creek, we finished the assessment there. That was, we found some interesting things there that we will be addressing. Friars Creek, we're working on addressing those defects. Bird Creek, we're still working on those defects as well. We've gotten a lot better at as our team has been able to stay together for longer, which we appreciate everybody's support and keeping our employees around. That's really helped us to get better at doing things and get more things done. So we hope we can continue to improve on our abilities there. New licenses. This is our ongoing efforts to make sure that our staff's trained and knows what they're doing, which is really important when it comes to water and sewer. So you can see all these folks that have gotten licensed this past quarter. And here's some more. So we're getting people that know how to do things safely and properly. That's helping us out a lot in terms of our abilities and knowledge. Looking ahead, we're going to look at
Like on a repair crew or something. How many of those people do you want licensed? Do you want one person licensed that's a supervisor that supervises the two or three others? Or will multiple people on the crew be licensed?
So because of the size of the city of Temple, we're required to have certain licenses overseeing the crew. So we have one person that meets those requirements, and then the rest, we try and get the minimum. So they have the minimum knowledge and safety standards because they're interacting with people drinking water or wastewater. So we make sure that they're overseen by someone that at least has, currently it's a C requirement, but because we serve over 100,000, it could be a B requirement depending on how you interpret it. So we're right to that next threshold. So it's kind of how it works. But we do let staff move up and get more knowledge if they want to, because it only helps us.
Sure.
So.
Good.
All right, looking ahead, the top program, that's for water treatment. That's a program TCQ offers, which we have some limitations by our infrastructure on that, but we're researching it to see if there's a way we can meet that program. I replaced 2 non-functional pumps at G-Avenue Pump Station. We've already finished that just in time for another one to break down today, which was great. So we got to replace that. That pump station is due to be replaced. Currently, we are hampered because of the demand on it. We're running it pretty hard. So hopefully this pump will be the last one we replace before we rebuild it. The pumps we put in, which we put in some new pumps, we'll salvage and do what we can with them. But that's a challenge for us. That's being caused by, it's being caused by something called cavitation, but we don't have much time. So another day I'll explain that to you.
Just say that again.
Cavitation is when the air gets in the water.
Cavitation, yeah.
So the air acts like, it sounds like little rocks in there. And
Yeah, no, I understand.
Pipe bursting and lining projects. This is something we're looking to expand on to help with our EPA order and to replace lines cheaply. We have real bad issues in certain areas of town that we want to just get that stuff fixed. We can quit bugging people. That should be a cost savings. That's also something that's being required as part of our EPA order. And our goal is always to fill vacant positions, which we're above 90% everywhere, about to be 100% in a couple spots. We just want to get people in here so we can run at full steam. We got a lot to do. So moving on to engineering, this isn't necessarily my expertise, but we got the Meta Industrial Park project going on, which is gonna help for future expansion. You can see them all there, lots of money going at breakneck speed building stuff. So kudos to our engineering team for handling a lot of that, and our finance team as well. That's quite the load that's on everybody there. Construction completed on Outer Loop North. You can see some pictures there with our drone. Got that done. That's exciting. Elevated storage tank, that's exciting for me because right now we'd be getting bombarded by calls of people with no water, but we aren't getting that anymore since that's put in, so that's been nice. That tank was, I think, $250,000, so it's about 4 times as big, I believe. Anyway, so it's helped us out there. Made some people happy. First Street was completed. Looks awesome. Stuff that's going on downtown's amazing. It's a cool place to go walk around. It's a total team effort to make that happen. Got the new pedestrian bridge put up there on 31st Street, complete with some art for our city manager. Only the best for her.
Is it gonna be painted?
Huh?
Are they gonna do anything with the look of that, or it's just gonna,
You know what? I don't know. Usually they leave them natural.
you're saying no?
I believe it's done, except for when we get to install some dog and cat art.
If you want it painted, Mayor,
Hey,
say so.
I bet turquoise and pink, library colors.
rust isn't bad.
I'm gonna stay on that one. That's a Charter Oak water line, that'll be a good one to have done. That has been a challenge for everybody. On these capital projects, the utility crews end up doing a lot of work too to help do tie-ins and shutting valves and things down. When contractors hit things, then we get to go out and fix it. So this has been a challenging project. It's good to have done. Very important project. Kudos to Ed with engineering for getting that one done for us. NLK Fairgrounds complete the summer underground electric staff and storage building. So they're continuing their work to improve downtown. There's another project that's going to be going on this spring, downtown city center, getting utilities, roads. It's exciting to see it when it's all put together and done. The membrane plant we're still building out there. That we have a really good contract out on that project, thankfully, and that's going well. And it's a lot of the big structures are finishing up, being built. Some of the insides, getting the guts put together on the treatment plant. Plans to begin construction this summer. Azalea Drive, the corporate hangar out there at the airport, and then that 3 million gallon storage tank out at 920, which we're looking forward to have. So a lot going on. I did not choose that picture. I did that. Hey, that's the sewer frog. That frog picture is taken out of the sewer. There was a frog in the sewer, and we kept just hopping along. We're like, get out of the way so we can see with our camera eventually. Behind the camera. Found Don's head, I guess. He's the new mascot of Public Works. So anyways, I'm sorry, I went through that kind of fast. Any questions for us? Anything you want to add, Richard? No? Good.
Always amazed at how quickly all that work gets done. Yeah, and how many projects, you know, this is constant. Okay, thank you very much. Very good. So I will end this workshop. It is 7:05, and we'll see you downstairs. Thank you.